My name is Domenic Rampone, and I sit on a number of committees for the City of Kelowna. I presently sit on the Agriculture Advisory Committee for the city, and also I'm on the Board of Directors of the Uptown Rutland Business Association.
What's the biggest issue in the election for you, and why?
The biggest issue is employment, is trade. I think we have to be really conscious of what we can do in this country and promote the manufacturing and promote what we can do in this country, because I think it's immense what we can do, and we can do a lot more in the world stage.
What qualities do you want in your Prime Minister, and why?
The biggest quality I have is honesty, transparency, and I think that's, once you have those two things, I think you are going to be very successful in promoting what Canada stands for: trust, honesty, and compassion for our country.
What qualities do you want in your local MP, and why?
Very similar to the Prime Minister. I think we have to be engaging in the community, and I think we have to have a true understanding of what the local issues are in our community. That's very, very important to understand those.
What environmental issue impacts you the most, and how can it be addressed?
The biggest environmental issue I have to me is water quality. We can't sustain life without water, so I think the water quality is pretty important right across this country, and some of the First Nations peoples don't have quality water, and if we have quality water, we're going to have better fish stocks, we're going to have healthier people, so water is really important to the substance of life.
How should the federal government address living affordability in your local community?
The biggest thing I can see over the short time I've been on this earth is the fact that if we have a healthy economy, good jobs, and that the housing will come, and the best way is to encourage that kind of sustainability is by having a healthy economy and everybody's working, then the housing will be there.
Generally, how can the federal government make a positive impact to your local community?
Well, I think the positive, they could have encourage housing, encourage transportation, facilitate some transportation issues through the central Okanagan with Highway 97, which has got some sort of federal jurisdiction. So I think by facilitating those things, say our constituencies are having trouble moving around the central Okanagan or the Kelowna area, so how do we improve that?
If you could say one thing directly to the next Prime Minister, what would it be and why?
I would say the biggest thing I would say is agriculture. We have to have solid food production. The same analogy as having clean water and good water. We have to have agriculture is very important because it is the substance of life. So I think we have to value food more in this country like they do in Europe and Asia and other parts of the world. If we value food, then the policies will come that we'll have to have solid agricultural policies.
How can the federal government support your local community economic development?
I think by encouraging the trade between different countries, and with all the issues they're having in the United States, I think the federal government can try to increase the trade between Europe, the European Union, and Canada, and what we do good, and try to say that we are a safe country to deal with. Our banking system is safe, our government is solid. So I think those two aspects would really help to go to increase trade.
What can the federal government do to grow jobs in your local community?
Is take what we do really well here. For example, encourage more research and development when it comes to agriculture, because right now we have the leading research station in the world at the Pacific Agricultural Research Center in Summerland, and if we encourage more research there for items that we produce that we're the only places in Canada that can be produced, would spur on more research, and also really tap into UBCO's all the research people they have out there and increase the research grants that are out there.
How should the federal government collaborate with your province and with your community?
I think the biggest thing would be to really get this free trade between the provinces quicker than what they're going, and be proud of what we do across Canada, and be proud of what we do in the Kelowna area and in BC. For example, in August, the Okanagan Valley is the only place in the world that has sweet cherries. So you never hear any items to be proud of that, and I think we should be proud of what we're the only place in the world that has it. So I think those two things could collaborate a lot more.
What is the most important issue in this election?
I think it's economic, it's jobs, housing is a big item, and also immigration, because without a lot of immigration, we're not going to sustain the stuff that we could produce here without the immigration. And I'll go back to the cherries and use that as an example. There's something like 30,000 temporary farm worker housing people here in the summertime. Without them, there'd be no fruit being picked. You can even go further and say over the whole province, I can't remember how many thousands of people are picking items down in the Lower Mainland. But to encourage that, and to also encourage the transition, if you're coming from another country and you're a qualified doctor or nurse, make that transition easier so we can help our healthcare system in these remote areas where they're closing down emergency rooms all the time. And there's lots of people that are willing to work in them, but they're having difficulty getting their credentials from Canada.
What is the most important issue in your riding?
I think the most important issue in the riding, there's a couple. Obviously, housing is a big issue, and the economic benefit, because I think we could encourage more at a national level to increase our manufacturing, and also facilitate establishment of a manufacturers association that we could deal on a national level with all what we manufacture here, and of course really promote the agriculture, because we're unique into the most of Canada.
Will you be voting the same way you have 2 months ago? If not, what changed?
I think because it's such a short campaign, I'm really looking forward for people that can address agriculture, employment, and housing. Those three things I think are important. So my mindset, I'd probably vote for the same issues or the same qualities that the candidate would have 2 months ago as it is now.
What issue do you think will likely not receive due treatment in this election?
Over the number of years, agriculture never is on the front burner, never is. And I think it should be. When we had the pandemic, and even now, if you see people going around the stores want to buy Canadian, we should have been doing that a long time ago. And I think the federal government could help us, or help us, especially in the greater Kelowna area, is really increase that and really promote the health benefits of locally produced food items in our area.
Do you support Canada's current electoral system? If not, what would you change?
I was on a couple commissions a few years ago about the federal election boundaries, and I understand it's by population, but some of them, when they cross natural boundaries, doesn't make any sense to me. When they got like Okanagan Lake, you've got a federal candidate that goes both sides of the lake. That's not a natural boundary. So I'm not quite sure how you can do that and try to keep the electoral areas by population somewhat. I think we have to do the natural boundaries.
If you were Prime Minister, what would your first action be when you take office?
My first action would be, I think, to bring back federal agricultural budgets the way they were before, because we had tremendous budgets, and the budgets have been cut back a lot. And to me, you can probably tell by the answers to the questions, is agriculture is really important to me.
The U.S. tariffs, do you think that affects this upcoming election, or what kind of opinions do you have about that?
Totally. Everywhere I talk to people, coffee groups all over, tariffs is always a big subject. Really, nobody understands it. But when you look at the world being a global marketplace, I think we have to maintain that, because we can do what we do best, and there could be other parts of the world that do what they do really good. So if you combine those two, you share ideas, you share knowledge, because the world is such a small area now, and shipping costs aren't necessarily a detriment to producing stuff around the world. But if we can sort of coordinate, we've got some natural resources, other countries have the technology, so if we combine those two, I think we have a product that could be affordable in different countries.
For people who don't, you've been in Kelowna for a long time, maybe share some insight about this upcoming election on a local level.
Well, I think when I'm talking to people, they are having a hard time, some of the newer candidates, they're having a hard time figuring out what their campaigns are. And so I really think that the door knocking that a lot of people do is a good method to get people one-on-one, to feel any connection of it's there. But I think some of the newer candidates just don't have enough time to get their message out. So I always encourage people that have asked me to run, like you almost got to run state your intentions this year for the following election, so you can get your word out there, you can research all the issues, because some of these big areas, the issue might be a little different in West Kelowna than it is Lake Country, or it might be a little different in Ellison and Joe Rich versus downtown Kelowna. So some of the rural areas across the country have way different concerns than the major centers, because, and I think agriculture doesn't have a big voice anymore, because I can't remember how many years ago, might have been 50 or 75 years ago, the prairies had the balance of power in a lot of elections. Now the agricultural vote is only 1 or 2%, so they don't swing any votes, because obviously people moved into the centers. But we can't rely on, we have to always remember where our food comes from, because there's no farms, there's no food. So, I think we really have to establish, it's kind of like going back to where your roots were. Everybody somewhere's got some family that was a farming family, so that's really passionate to my heart, because if we have proper programs, and I'm not saying that subsidies are, in my own mind, that's not a good deal, but we can encourage different crops to be grown. And I'll use an example. 95% or 90% of the garlic, for example, which everybody uses nowadays, is imported from Asia. We grow fantastic garlic here, and we don't encourage that crop. Like, for example, we don't get any encouragement to grow sweet potatoes in the province of BC. There's sweet potato fries on every menu in the country, and we don't grow any in BC. So I think the government could encourage that type, because not only does it benefit British Columbia in the local area, but it also benefits the Canadian market, because we could ship sweet potato fries to Western Canada.
I love that insight. Any last words? I know you kind of mentioned it before, but any last words you want to share? Or?
I think the biggest thing is do your due diligence as a constituent or as a citizen of Canada, to really reach out to the candidates and ask them what they stand for, because in their campaigns they're going to slant their type issue. They may not forget your issue, like for example the cost of going to university, which there's a lot of federal money involved in the universities, or how the universities are cutting back now because of the foreign student issue. And when you see the cultural diversity of even Okanagan College, I had the honor to do the spring convocation for Okanagan College, give out some awards. And the diversity of the cultures there, I think, is so important to how we develop Canada. That diversity is so important because people bring different viewpoints from different cultures, and I think that's what's made Canada such a great melting pot of cultures.
Do you think it's important to vote?
Oh, 100%. The voting is, when you talk to countries that don't have the same democracy issues that we have in Canada, it's difficult. But some people here say the vote doesn't matter. But we've had some close elections. Even the last provincial one here was like 8, or the civic, 8 votes or something. So it's really important that you go out there and vote, because that's what we fought numerous world wars, 2 or 3 world wars we had, and other things, is that right to vote, and that right to free speech is very important, that you can say your opinion and have a good discussion with somebody.
Well, thank you for joining us today.
You're welcome. It's always a pleasure.